the show where we break down major political events like you've got to hit the polls today. I'm your host, Ollie Hunt, here to make sense of the political chaos so you don't have to pretend like you read a bunch of research. I'm no historian, but I do like to do a lot of research for literally no reason when I have way better things to do. So, that being said, today's episode is Dick Cheney. He's a political figure that has a rich history in politics. His career is widespread on a load of different political events that affect our country to this day. To understand Dick Cheney, we've got to go back to early career. And by early career, I mean he went to Yale and dropped out. He's also been everywhere. The Cold War, the Persian Gulf, the War on Terror, and somehow still managed to have like 5 heart attacks. So, in the 1970s, he went to Washington, and he was President Gerald Ford's chief of staff. Chief of staff is like the closest advisor, kind of closer than the vice president, which is like low-key controversial, but it's okay. It's basically like the president's bouncer and event planner. They tell them, what's going on, who's annoying, who's not annoying, and like what meetings to skip because you just want a few hours of sleep. After that, he was in the House of Representatives for his state of Wyoming, but bro was smoking multiple packs a day at this point and had a heart attack in the middle of his campaign. A colleague of his took on the campaign, and when he returned from his medical leave, he had 59% of the vote. So someone did something right. Whether it was him or his colleague, we don't know. He had a reputation for himself. He was a very diehard conservative. He was pretty cut and dry. He wanted defense budgets, specifically for the Cold War. He didn't think Nelson Mandela should have been released from prison, which I did not know that was contended much until today. And he kind of was just a pot stirrer. That guy or girl in your gen ed class who just really likes listening to themselves talk? I'm getting that vibe. In 1989, President George H.W. Bush asked him to be defense secretary. Actually, the president asked someone else, but that person didn't get the Senate vote confirmation, which is needed in order to, actually get the position. So Cheney was the second choice, which is awkward. So a defense secretary is, the boss of the entire army, but, not really. He manages the budget so he can be you are annoying, so you don't get this. But he makes sure, they're doing what they need to do. He would tell the president, hey, we should send the army here, and they should do this. And the president is able to be you're kind of right. Or they were no, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. But this was the end of the Cold War. So the USSR had just collapsed, and the army was just kind of what am I doing right now? Well, Cheney went to NATO, and he was we got to keep an eye on Eastern Europe. They just broke up into a bajillion different pieces, and it might fail because it's going to be really unstable. And he was basically y'all need to get on that because, this is your problem a little bit, but, also it's his problem. The funny thing about being a defense secretary is each fiscal year, every branch of government gives, a Christmas list to the defense secretary, but on the Christmas list is, 300 B-2 stealth bombers. In the first Bush administration, he was I'm going to propose $300 billion for the fiscal year. They needed to cut that to, maybe $12 billion. But most of his budget and army changes were pretty non-existent. The growth of the budget was, pretty minuscule, but he often got into misunderstandings with lawmakers because they would approve of buying things that weren't on his list. He also lost, 20% of the army in 4 years, but, we ball. His real big moment came next in 1990. Iraq, led by Saddam Hussein, the meme guy, that was hiding in, that really small hole, and everyone makes fun of it because it looks like some random cookie on TikTok looks like the Saddam Hussein hiding spot. Well, he wanted to invade Kuwait, and he wanted to invade Kuwait because there was oil, because it's always about oil. For some reason, oil is just this big thing. Kuwait is tiny, but it's loaded with oil. Saddam wanted that bad. He wasn't stopping there. Saudi Arabia was next on his list. He had multiple stops on this tour. So Cheney flies to Saudi Arabia, and he's yo, I can help you out, but, can we occupy for a second so I can do this? And King Fahd was yeah, sure, why not? And then we get Operation Desert Shield. Desert Shield was basically, the first time that they were, yo, we gotta, like, not do that. Like, Iraq, you gotta get out. And Iraq was like, no. So it turned into Operation Desert Storm, which I guess goes harder than Desert Shield. And that's when the U.S. went full, like, we've got receipts. Like, you need to get up on out of here. And it worked. It was quick, flashy, and America was feeling very proud of their Operation Desert Shield. And Cheney was like the guy that everyone said, like, oh my God, you won the war. Oh my goodness. At this point, he's in his, like, peak. He's that Chad peak alpha male guy. He's like, yeah, I did that. I made the army the world's strongest military. I did that. Fast forward, we get to 2001. We all know what happens in 2001. It's chaos. George W. Bush is president. Cheney is his vice president, and everything just changes overnight. America is terrified. Bush is like, no, we're not going to do that. So he's like, we have to, like, stop the terrorists in their tracks, like, before they even think about another 9/11. This begins the global war on terror. The U.S. involves themselves with Afghanistan and Iraq, which the Iraq business was because Saddam Hussein opened his big fat mouth and was like, I have weapons of mass destruction. And Cheney took the bait and was like, I hate you, and now I'm going to destroy your entire, like, weapons of mass destruction thing. Spoiler alert, there weren't any weapons of mass destruction, but, whatever. So America starts going after these terrorists. They invade Afghanistan to hit the Taliban, and they go into Iraq for whatever reason they could make up. And during this time, Cheney's, like, low-key a little tinfoil hat about everything. He's got a pacemaker for his heart attacks, and he's like, what if they can, like, hack into my pacemaker via Wi-Fi and kill me from the inside? So he goes into hiding, takes his Wi-Fi pacemaker out, and replaces it with a new one because bro needed that pacemaker anyways. And finally, they're like, this isn't really, like, gonna, like, it's not gonna happen. Cheney became known as the real power behind the Bush presidency, but with the power became a bunch of controversy. He got kind of dark. He defended using torture, like stuff like waterboarding, to get these terrorists to say what the Americans wanted, and he was all for detention in Guantanamo Bay. Like, it was getting pretty controversial for him. After this whole thing, after 2 terms, dipped out of office and just kept stirring the pot. After he got out of office, he went on a hunting trip and shot his colleague on accident, and it came up, like, right after he got out of office, and he was like, yeah, I did that. Whoopsies. And it kind of, like, low-key went on the down low. Like, it blew up for a little bit, but he wasn't in office, so they weren't really able to do much. The real controversy that really came through was in 2016, he denounced Trump. He did not like the guy. He went against his party and was like, I don't think you should vote for this guy. And then in 2024, he did it again. And this time, he was actually like, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris, which was pretty controversial in Republicans' eyes because they did not like Kamala Harris. We're like, what the heck, man? Like, you're a cut and dry Republican. Why are you straying from the flock and saying you're going to vote for Kamala Harris? Like, that's not what we do. People were pretty scandalized, but then he kind of, like, fell out, and people just kind of remembered him as the guy who led the war on terror, who did the Iraq stuff, known for most of the, like, war stuff that he did, which maybe he wanted that. I don't know. He was pretty into it, so thinking maybe he wanted that. Anyways, in November 2025, he passed from a heart attack. Who saw that coming? I saw that coming after the 5 of them he had, but, R.I.P. He was pretty controversial, and honestly, I'm pretty sure the heart attacks came from, the stress of all of the controversy. I mean, he defended torture. I don't think people take that very lightly. I'd be stressed from all the publicity I got if I defended torture too. But all in all, pretty controversial guy. So, all right, thank you guys so much for listening. That was Dick Cheney on Explain It Like I'm Voting. Now you know more about him. I'm Ollie Hunt, and next time we'll break down another political event that you've likely heard of but can't really explain. Until next time.